Hi, I'm Mrs. Wright, and I teach a second grade in the Yellow Hallway. And we are working on writing opinion letters about books that you love. So you're going to need a piece of notebook paper today, a few pieces of notebook paper. You're going to need a pencil and a book that you recently read that you really enjoyed. So go grab that stuff and meet me back here. The book I'm going to be writing about is The Sandwich Swap, and we just recently read this book for Read Across America Week, and I thought this book was a wonderful story. So that's the book I'm going to be writing about. All right, so remember that you get to choose two topics that you are going to write about that explain why you like the book. Each topic will be a separate paragraph in your letter. So I could write about the characters in the story. I could write about my favorite parts of the story, the pictures the illustrator included, the cover of the book, the title of the book, lessons I learned from the story. And remember that these are just ideas, and you could also write about other things like the way the author kept the reader on the edge of their seat waiting to find out what would happen next, or you could write about creative organization of the book. Okay, so I've chosen my two topics. I'm going to write about the pictures in the story, and I'm also going to write about the lessons learned from the story. What two topics are you going to write about on your book? Once you've decided, grab your notebook paper, pencil, and let's get started. The first part of a friendly letter is to write the date, and this goes in the top right hand corner. You should always write the full date when writing a letter because it looks more formal. The date today is March 28th, 2020 because that was when this video was made, but your date will be different. The next part is who I am writing the letter to. This is called the greeting. I'm going to write my letter to another teacher friend of mine in another school. Remember, the greeting goes on the next line down from the date and starts on the left side. So I wrote, Dear Mrs. Krajewski, which is the last name of my teacher friend. Don't forget to capitalize names, and after the name in the greeting, you need to put a comma. All right, so why don't you pause this video and start your letter and write the date and the greeting. Now I'm going to show you my first paragraph, and the first paragraph of the letter should be the introduction. We haven't learned much about that yet, so for right now, it's going to be pretty short. I told what the name of the book was, the author of the book, and remember that when you start a new paragraph, you need to move the first letter of the word in a little bit, and this is called indenting. So right there is where I showed you how I did that. And you do that for each new paragraph to start to show that that's a new paragraph. And don't forget also that you need to capitalize the title of the book and names in your writing. So I wrote for my introduction paragraph, you should read the book The Sandwich Swap by Queen Rania Al Abdullah and Kelly DiPuccio. All right, so that's all I'm going to write for the introduction for now. Go ahead and pause the video again and write your introduction of your book. Let's start the next paragraph, which tells one reason I enjoyed the book. Okay, so if we go back to this chart, one of the reasons I picked that I love the book is because of the pictures in the story. And so that's what the focus of this paragraph is going to be about, the pictures in the story. All right. And Mrs. Johnson taught us that we also need to tell why with the word because. Let me show you that. So I wrote this paragraph. I'll go ahead and start reading it. I indented and wrote, I loved looking at the pictures because, right there's where I use that word because. Let me see. Let me make that bigger. Okay. Because they really helped tell the story. Mrs. Johnson also told us that we should give an example and try to use the words for example, and that's where I did this here. For example, Salma and Lily had smiles on their faces in the pictures at the beginning of the story, which told me they were happy. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video again and write the first reason you enjoyed your book. Remember to indent and also include the words because and try to give an example if you can. All right, we're going to start the next paragraph. And in the next paragraph, we're going to talk about our second reason that we really like the book. And I chose, I'm going to be talking about the lessons that I learned from the story. That's going to be my focus of this paragraph. Okay. So again, I indented because I'm starting a new paragraph, and I wrote, the story teaches some important lessons. This makes a great book to read to your class because your students could learn from the lessons. For example, one lesson that can be learned from the story is to accept others for their differences. So again, pause the video and write your second paragraph about why you really liked your book, and remember to indent, and also remember to use those special words because and give an example of why you enjoyed the story. To finish our letter, we need to write the closing. We need to write one more final paragraph, the conclusion paragraph. And, I'm so sorry. Right here's my conclusion paragraph. I indented again. It's really short for right now because we haven't learned much about the conclusion. So I just wrote, I think your class will enjoy this book, and I hope you read it to them. And then I went down a line and I wrote the closing. I wrote your teacher friend, and Mrs. Krajewski is a friend of mine who is a teacher, so it fits my letter, but you could write from or sincerely or love. It depends on who you're writing your letter to. Make sure you remember to capitalize the first letter of your closing, so I capitalized the Y, and then also remember to put a comma after your closing. Underneath the closing is where you write your name. So I wrote Mrs. Wright. Let me go back and read my letter. And then I also want you to do the same with yours, just checking to make sure it makes sense and fixing anything that needs fixed. Okay, so March 28th, 2020. Dear Mrs. Krajewski, you should read the book The Sandwich Swap by Queen Rania Al Abdullah and Kelly DiPuccio. I love looking at the pictures because they really helped tell the story. For example, Salma and Lily had smiles on their faces in the pictures at the beginning of the story, which told me they were happy. The story teaches some important lessons. This makes a great book to read to your class because your students could learn from the lessons. For example, one lesson that can be learned from the story is to accept others for their differences. I think your class will enjoy this book, and I hope you read it to them. Your teacher friend, Mrs. Wright. Okay, so I want you to go back and finish up your letter. Make sure that you wrote the date and then the greeting, and then you wrote a short introduction, and then you wrote one reason about why you liked the book. So I wrote about pictures in this one. Make sure you include those special words because and try to give an example. And then also write another paragraph about a second reason why you also like the book. And the focus of my paragraph was on the lessons that I believe that you can learn from the story. Again, use the special words because and for example if you can. And last, finish up with just a short conclusion paragraph. We really haven't talked much about that yet, so just write a short conclusion paragraph, a closing, and then your name. That's it for today's lesson. I can't wait to see you for another lesson and make our letter even better. Thanks. Bye.